Hello, and welcome to our little introduction to neuropsychological evaluation of neurodevelopmental conditions. My name is Allison, and I will be guiding you through the neuropsychological process today. Firstly, what is a neuropsychological evaluation and what's the purpose of it? A neuropsychological evaluation is essentially a method of assessing and understanding an individual's cognitive abilities. In the context of neurodevelopmental conditions, it's a way for clinicians and clients to identify what is currently causing concern in terms of cognitive and behavioral functioning and what can be taken forward to ultimately improve quality of life. This may be done through the recommendation of school accommodations, therapy and medication, and school resource funding in the case of intellectual disabilities and autism diagnoses. The assessment process will vary depending on what the client's needs are. However, they will typically involve an informal process which includes taking a thorough developmental history of the client, interviewing the client, their parents, and their teachers if they are a child, and getting relevant records like report cards or medical documentation. Observations may also occur with children where the clinician can ask to sit in during a class and observe the child as they interact with their classroom environment and their peers. Next step is testing and assessment, where the focus of a neuropsychological evaluation ultimately falls upon. I'll go through these more extensively in a moment, but this is the step where we learn more about the client's cognitive and behavioral functioning by comparing their performance and ratings to a norm referenced population. What does that mean? The measures used have been standardized to compare results to a predefined population, such as for those speaking a specific language or those of a specific country origin. Following the actual testing, the clinician interprets the results and yields diagnoses and recommendations where appropriate. Last is the feedback conference, where the findings of the interpretations are presented to the clients and talked through to make sure they understand how the diagnoses and recommendations were made, as well as next steps. All right, so into breaking down the tests and assessments. Intellectual testing is a type of testing that is essential in assessing neurodevelopmental conditions to assist in identifying cognitive strengths and weaknesses. This can help with differential diagnoses between intellectual disability, specific learning disorders, and ADHD, for instance. With intellectual disability, typically we see weaknesses across all testing areas, whereas with specific learning disorders, ADHD, or autism, there may be weaknesses in specific areas instead, such as with working memory, which is often a difficulty in ADHD. Weaknesses in one area, however, does not mean that the client has a particular diagnosis. Testing is taken as a whole alongside interviewing to get a big picture of the client, which informs diagnoses. And though many intellectual tests exist, the most commonly used ones are the Westshore scales, which generally include tests of verbal comprehension, the ability to understand spoken language, visual spatial ability, which refers to the ability to tell where objects are in space, working memory, the ability to hold and manipulate small amounts of information, like remembering a phone number, and lastly, perceptual reasoning, the ability to reason and solve problems with nonverbal stimuli. The subtests within these areas typically involve verbal questioning or interaction with provided testing materials. Supplementary tests may be included as well that are not part of the primary testing areas, which can be selected as needed. Achievement testing is typically used in assessing academic performance for similar differential diagnoses of specific learning disorders and ADHD, for instance. Typically, with specific learning disorders, the client will demonstrate weaknesses in a specific area, such as reading if they have dyslexia. However, individuals can show weaknesses in more than one area as well. With ADHD, similar results may occur where weaknesses are yielded. However, differences may exist in the interview results and cognitive testing, wherein the reasoning behind their weaknesses may be revealed to be related to attentional difficulties and executive dysfunction rather than difficulties learning the academic skills, which is the case with specific learning disorders. Clients may, however, have both a learning disorder and ADHD, as they are comorbid in many individuals. Cognitive testing is used to assess additional cognitive domains that are additive to the intellectual tests and achievement tests. The clinician may choose specific tests based upon the individual's needs. Some examples of what these tests may involve include memorization of prompts in memory tests, while tests of attention may involve assessments of impulsivity and inattention. Language tests may include testing for listening and reading, while executive function tests may yield an individual's ability to perform tasks or regulate themselves. Lastly, visual motor integration may involve tasks of coordination and perception. For memory, attention, and executive function, these tests may yield valuable information for a client whose concerns may be due to ADHD, for instance. Therefore, these tests will allow us to learn more about what areas are specifically of concern. Language may be explored in communication-related conditions as well, while visual motor integration may be used to identify concerns with motor skills and sensory processing. Any combination of these tests may be used in a given individual, and it is likely that a number will be used during the assessment process to yield a differential diagnosis. Adaptive behavior testing is used to assess a set of skills necessary to navigate daily living. It's typically used in assessments where concerns relating to intellectual disability and autism exist. Tools will vary in what they assess, but some examples may include assessing communication, daily living skills like attending to personal hygiene, socialization, and motor skills. In any given autism diagnostic assessment, additional interviews and perhaps the inclusion of rating scales are required to clarify the client's developmental history, patterns of behavior, and more to identify if the individual's presentation fits the autism diagnosis. Socio-emotional assessments may additionally occur to assist in identifying areas that may need attention in addition to neurodevelopmental concerns, such as anxiety or mood regulation concerns. These assessments will typically include rating scales and interviewing. It is important to note that these problems or difficulties may be comorbid in addition to neurodevelopmental concerns, as they are highly correlated and many individuals experience these as a result of their neurodevelopmental conditions. In summary, neuropsychological evaluations may vary greatly between individuals with neurodevelopmental concerns due to the vast range of conditions that fall under its umbrella. The process will typically be similar as laid out before. However, the tests will differ, and the choice regarding which test to use will fall upon the particular client's presentation, which is unique and personal to themselves. There's much more to learn about each specific test mentioned, therefore I encourage further exploration beyond this little introduction. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the best for your learning journey.